Big 50. That's right. Episode 50. And thank you so much for coming, viewing, and listening. And so, today I have a panel of conversations with Tony Mobley supporters. Conversation today. Again, this is episode 50 of Conversations with Tony Mobley. Why are we here? We're here because life has provided me the opportunity to have real conversations with real people. First, I want to thank my guest, Dr. Mosina Holmes Morris, for our great conversation last Wednesday. And I want to thank the team behind Conversations with Tony Mobley. So, we are here to have real conversations. And I suspect that this will kind of be a ruthless review of what Conversations with Tony Mobley has been and is becoming. We hope to help others with these conversations. But I need your help. I need you to go to my website. The website is conversationswithTonyMobley.com. Why do I want you to do it? And after 50 episodes, this probably sounds kind of redundant. But the reason why is because we have what we call the Mukana chat. It is a chat where you can ask questions, and those questions can be voted up and down based on the voting. That's right. And so you have a say-so in this limited time whether or not your questions get to be asked. So if you like this and past conversations, we ask that you like and subscribe, set the bell to all notifications to be reminded of upcoming conversations. And that's it. And so now we're going to start with our very first question. But before I do that, I'm going to ask all of my panel members to introduce themselves and share anything that they would like to share at this time. And we're going to start with Dr. Chris Clark.
Thank you, Tony. I'm glad you started with the eldest person here. I'm a retired professor, which is a dangerous category of people to invite to speak first, because sometimes we run out of time for the second person, but I won't let that happen today. So I'm Chris Clark. I live in Tempe, Arizona, retired several times, but now I'm quote unquote really retired in the sense that I don't go to an office. If I work for anyone, it's for Conversations with Tony Mobley, and Office Hours, our parent show that happens every morning. Got drawn into that because I have a long experience with education, research on teaching and teachers, and part of the Office Hours routine was to have a Saturday morning discussion of education, especially issues that related to adapting to the pandemic and the closing of schools for a while and so forth. In any case, I'll stop there and pass the ball back to Tony, our host.
And I will say that Dr. Clark has been the designated ringer for Conversation with Tony Mobley to make sure that we have great and valid questions in every show of Conversations. So thank you, Dr. Clark. We're going to go next to Guy Cochran.
Hey, good evening. From Seattle, Washington. I'm Guy Cochran from DVE Store. I have a little retail store that sells a lot of the equipment that some of the panelists are using today. One of the things that I find intriguing about this show is just when I was little, I had a CB radio, and you could cruise through the channels and you can find people to talk to. And I look across this panel and I just kind of laugh because it reminds me of this evolution of like America Online chat and cable access, where you just meet different people and you get to know people. And that's what it seems like we're here among friends, and we're meeting new people, not just in the US, but all over the world. Hasma wasn't able to join us, but we would have had somebody on a whole nother continent. So I find this show and other shows like it in the future, just people meeting people and working together and sharing information. So I'm excited to be here and watch you grow, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. And thank you, DVE Store, for your support and encouragement with Conversation with Tony Mobley. Next, we're going to go to Aaron Husledge.
Hi, I'm Aaron Husledge. I live in Durham, North Carolina. I am a self-proclaimed AV geek from back in the day of such things. I am a technology guy. I've worked in tech for 30 years and off and on, and video and stuff. And I met Tony through office hours like all these folks did, and we just kind of hit it off. And I think the world needs more shows like this, more people just talking to each other and learning about each other. And I love the show and I love working on it. So, I've been doing a lot of the technology stuff on the back end along with Guy and a few other people who are in the credits. So we're all really excited to see where we go from here.
Thank you, Aaron, for being such a great supporter behind the scenes. And all I can say is thank you for all of your efforts and all of the things that you've done for Conversation with Tony Mobley and for Tony Mobley himself. Thank you, sir.
Of course.
And last but not least, I was getting ready to skip one of my favorite people, Liberty White, who is part of the reason that Conversation with Tony Mobley exists. And so Liberty White.
Greetings, everyone. I thought you were like going to go to Tulloch. I was like, what are your favorite people, producer extraordinaire? But happy to be in such great company with everyone tonight. I'm Liberty White, founder of Chosen Media and Chosen Media Kids, and part of the Office Hours community. So I'm excited to be here, episode 50, and just to see your growth and progression. Because I remember a conversation we had a little while ago where I was like, Tony, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. And you were able to, not only share wisdom, but being the example yourself of constantly, just putting one foot in front of the other. And even when it looks like, why am I doing this? Or when you might question those things, you were able to give me some solid feedback because you've been doing this for 50 episodes. So just kudos to you, and so happy to be here with everyone else.
Thank you, Liberty White. Thank you for your good counsel as well as your support. And finally, Clyluck Miguel Lopez Waterman, Conversation with Tony Mobley producer. Hello, sir.
Hi, everybody. So some of you might think, what does that mean, producer? I hear that all the time. Producer, everybody's a producer. Well, I think in this case it means friend. And, Tony and I have just become very, very close. And in the last 2 weeks, I've been or week and a half, or I can't even really tell how long it's been, but I've not had a chance to have a phone conversation with Tony, and it's missing in my life, to just have a conversation with him and go through a few things and talk a little bit about who we might have on the panel, or what might come next, or things to look out for, that kind of thing. We kind of go over those things and bounce them back and forth between each other. And I think that I have learned more from that process than I could ever describe in time for the boredom factor in this forum. But I'm incredibly grateful to you, Tony, for showing me how to lead with kindness and to lead with curiosity. And I hope that that you continue on with that. And the other thing that I would say about the 50th episode is looking back at episode 1 versus episode 50. And I know there's some questions coming up about this. The thing is that I want everybody to please look at is not the technology. It's not the way that the show is cut. I want you to look at how amazingly huge improvements in how Tony hosts a show. Because what has happened is Tony has owned the space that he's created. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see.
Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate that. And so we're going to start with the very first question from Dr. Clark. And it says, Tony, how have you changed since episode 1 of Conversations with Tony Mobley? So, how have I changed? I'm going to flip it. And I'm going to ask you, in your opinion, Guy Cochran, how have I changed?
It's been fun watching you evolve. I think at first you were a little nervous, but now you've come to where you've just accepted the role. And I'd imagine some of your church activities, some of just jumping up in front of a congregation and being able to speak. You've been there in the past, and you knew that that's the same kind of platform. It's just video. You're not looking at a room full of people in person. You're looking at them online, and so it's been a pleasure watching you become just this great host that can ask questions, be intrigued. You're not distracted. I remember watching some of the first ones where I was like, Tony, look at the monitor. Just don't. Who cares about anything else? Just look at the monitor. And I'm trying to learn myself, and so you're a great inspiration for other people, because I think that this platform, what we're doing here, we're using Zoom and vMix, and there'll be other ways of doing this, but I want to see other people like Liberty starting to host. I've hosted a couple times, and I think we need more people doing this to share these messages, and especially in a high quality manner, like what we're doing here with the nice, good sound, pretty pictures, and then a nice Q&A platform where we can go in and read and vote up and things like that. So this platform, it's phenomenal. I love being a part of this and seeing it evolve, and you being kind of the guy leading the charge. So it's been a fun evolution.
Thank you, Guy. Aaron Husledge?
Yeah, I mean, there have been times where I've been sitting here running the show going, Tony, wake up. Or like, come on, let's go, And then those have dwindled, like, to very rare. Like, you have become, like Tlaloc was saying, you have owned the space. You have created the space that you want to be in, and you've become comfortable with that space, and not so reliant on reading every word perfectly or anything like that, just speaking from your heart and having good conversations. Because I've talked to you outside of this, and you are a very good conversationalist. You tell stories. You're a smart human who likes to communicate well. And I think that's shining through now, and that's a huge thing, because that's really hard to do. It's hard to host a show because you've got so many things going on in your head all at once. And I mean, I don't do it right. I don't know how to do it. So watching you blossom, I guess, has been fabulous. And you're more vocal than you were at the beginning. I watched some of the earlier shows a couple weeks ago because I was thinking about this, like where we've become, and I think, yeah, it's been really great to watch.
Thank you, sir. Liberty White?
I really like what both Aaron and Talak have said of like you own the space. At first it was, putting together this show and trying to support someone and then having to put the pieces together, but your heart for your inquisitiveness, like just even watching you in the office hours community of starting with, I don't remember, I think it was a webcam and like all the different pieces that you started with to build even your studio space to where it is now. But that's the same thing you've done with this show, is like getting the pieces together. You thinking of just like even building something. So you might go to one store and grab some of these pieces and go to another, and you've gathered, insights. You take one thing I will say about you, you take feedback very, very well, because there have been times where the feedback could have been more graceful, and you took it and you used it, and now you're soaring and you've created, like, that's why it's Conversations with Tony Mobley. Like, this is the blueprint for others. So I'm just in awe of you, Tony.
Thank you for that. Clark?
Yeah, I think sovereignty, instead of being in a car that is driving, you are driving the car to where you want to go.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm trying really hard not to look at you because you're up on the right and I can't move things around because somebody spotlights something, but you are driving the car.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Clark?
Well, I asked the question. And it's taken me this long listening to all the rest of our panelists to come up with an answer that harmonizes with what's been said, but takes it in a slightly different direction. I think that at the beginning of the first week or the first couple of episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley, and maybe even before that, as you were planning, that it was a faith-based movement. You had faith in the office hours model. And if we could move that model over to the Conversation with Tony Mobley slot, the model would carry the show, because we know it works wonderfully every morning, but it's different. All of a sudden we discovered the magic is not necessarily in the model. It's in the people and the way the people listen and respond and have a real conversation more than a Q&A. So I think the change that I've seen, the evolution that I've seen, is that Conversation with Tony Mobley has become a different kind of conversation than what we see and enjoy in a different way during office hours. That office hours is a lot of question answering, questions from people who need and want that information, that consultation, and that's a wonderful service to the world. But this Conversation with Tony Mobley has moved off that into being what used to be called in television a variety show. But it's a variety show that is about the hearts and minds of your guests. And of course, in that exchange, we get to see different facets of the hearts and minds of Tony Mobley. So it's a gift both to our guests, to your guests, and to those of us listening who are getting to know and appreciate you better than we were able to do in episode 3 or episode 2 or episode 1.
Yeah, I'm going to answer the question by saying that I hope I hope that what Conversation with Tony Mobley is in episode 1 and in episode 50 is the same, in that it is an attempt at having an authentic conversation with whoever I'm talking to. And there is always a hope that whoever I'm having a conversation with, that whoever is watching gets to know that person or persons a little bit better. So I hope that as the episodes have gone by, that I've done a better job of that and will continue to get better at doing that. And so that's how I'm going to answer the question, Dr. Clark. Okay. Wow. The next question is, why support Conversation with Tony Mobley? And we're going to start this time with the producer.
So it's funny because, we've talked a lot today about office hours and how we've been able to take a deeper look at some of the people, that cast and crew that we see in that show. But for me, I think the reason to support this show is to encounter people who are not in that community. It is really, really important to realize when you're in a group of people that you really like hanging out with, that there are other people. And so, we have had people from other walks of life. We've had people from the education walk of life, and from the theatrical walk of life, and from therapy and dream interpretation, and those people are people that we don't encounter on a daily basis. And I think that I found the most not solace, that's the wrong word, but the most joy in being part of something that was looking also at those people. And so I want to support Conversations with Tony Mobley, because I think that we can talk to some amazing human beings and learn about them when we otherwise would not.
Thank you, sir. Liberty White?
Yeah, you give people, excuse me, who may often not have they have a voice, because we all have a voice, but they don't get necessarily a chance to tell their stories. And the reason why Conversations with Tony Mobley needs to exist is so that those people can share their stories, because when they share their stories, it provides an opportunity for others for their light to shine as well. Like seeing Dr. Morris last week and her sharing, the metaverse. So this woman who's homeschooling, who is, a doctor, and like all the flavors that make her, someone who's watching is like, wow, so maybe I can too, in whatever facet that could be. Then you had, I think it was Michael, or Mike the week before.
Triumphant Michael D. Jenkins.
Yes, and him telling his story, and while I've heard of him within the office hours community, but then hearing his origins, what they call the origin story, I'm like, wow. So I heard his story, but then I also heard, because I'm a mom, so I also heard his story from the viewpoint of a mother, and a mother's love, and a mother's persistence, and that just being something else that it's like, oh, okay, let me take that and put that in my in my cubby, or for future when I need that. So by you providing a platform for people to share their stories, and these are everyday people, and we live in a world where it's the highlight, it's the celebrity, it's the like all of the, somebody has to have super presence. But no, everyday people have star power as well, and you do that for them and for us.
Thank you. Guy Cochran?
Yeah, I think that you're a relatable guy, Tony, and so I think a lot of people can relate to you, and they can put themselves in your shoes, because you're so humble. You're not doing this for the glory. You're not grabbing the flag and running up the hill. Well, I guess you kind of are running the flag up the hill in a way that you're taking charge and leading the way. And there's going to be some failures. I mean, I'm not going to make this all rosy. There's been some audio issues and whatnot, but that's part of the process. And I think that's the goal of this, is not just doing the show, but there's people in the back end that are getting training, and this is a show that it's okay if the audio blips out, because we're going to make it better on the next one and the next one. And hopefully by the time somebody else wants to inherit the same kind of platform, we've prepared it well enough to 99.5% that they won't have those audio issues. And now we have a great place for people to interview other people so they can share their story and let their light shine. So I love supporting the whole infrastructure. I mean, behind the scenes, I help with some of the Zoom rooms and just some of the gear and equipment and whatnot. But the thing is, it's lift your fellow man, and you're archiving people's lives. I mean, if somebody passes on, I've had to live stream a couple of funerals lately, and those are memories that families hold dear. So it's nice to have an archive for somebody's life story. So you're doing that. You're doing a service to the community in more ways than one.
Thank you, Guy. Dr. Clark?
Thank you. My comments overlap a lot with Guy's in two senses. One, when a guest gets to tell their story to an interested, accessible, safe audience like you, Tony, and that's rare that we have that opportunity. The storyteller, is actually listening to themselves. They're making sense of their life, their values, and their aspirations in a way that's much more conversational and less awkward than writing up a biographical statement or a curriculum vitae. So the first audience for your guest story is themselves. They're making sense of it in a new, accessible way to a safe, genuinely interested audience represented by Tony. And the second part is similar to what Guy said, that this gets recorded and it's accessible to that person's family and friends. They can point them to their telling of their story in this beautifully presented and beautifully preserved package of a videotape that's available from the cloud or from the internet. And that's a gift that we can't know the value of it, but it's a positive value. It's a wonderful thing for someone's grandchildren to see, someone's colleagues to see, and so forth. So that's probably not the intention of Conversation with Tony Mobley. We think about it as the 90 minutes that were on the air is the show, but actually it's got a long tail, as they say. There's a lot of possibilities, a lot of ripples start on Wednesday evening, and they go, across the South Atlantic. Who knows how our friends in South Africa have made valuable use of the stories they've told and the ways they've been able to represent themselves and their aspirations. And And I've noticed that not many people are bragging about their accomplishments. They're talking more about their goals and their hopes and their wishes to be able to serve others better. I think in other words, you bring out the best in your guests. And that again is a rare gift.
I thank you. And there's still more work to do. There's definitely a lot more work to do.
We'll get to that.
Aaron?
I mean, what else is there to say? I started doing this because I wanted to support a fellow office hours person and people. And I now do it for all the reasons that everybody else has said. You know, this is really important work, and it's good to help every day, you know, once a week, and get people's stories told. And my whole life has been about getting people communicating and helping them communicate in ways that they feel comfortable. And so this fits with my own personal kind of vision of the world and getting people talking to each other in a really deep way. But it also, you know, fulfills my need to go do nerdy things, and it also feels my need to, you know, hang out with cool people who I really love. So, I mean, personally, all these things are important to me, and you know, it's a good way to spend the Wednesday night, you know.
And I love you too, Aaron, just so you know.
Thank you.
We have a question from a team member of Conversation with Tony Mobley, Miss Laura Thompson. Or it says Laura from Texas, but we know who that is. Congratulations to Tony and team. What do you want from Conversation with Tony Mobley to be known for doing differently and really well? Okay. Let's start with, you know what? On this one, I'm going to ask for you to raise your hand. And that way, okay, I saw Liberty first.
I will take the really well side of it, because as you were reading the question, I was thinking of all that has been shared, and of course all that you've done to date, and the authenticness that comes across with yourself and your ability to pull that out from other guests. I think instantly I think of Oprah. Like, she has not only the gift of doing that, but of course over the years has developed that, and we haven't really necessarily seen a male version to that. And besides maybe Montel Jordan, and totally dating myself from like the talk show series there, but doing that really well. So more of that, and then just being able to, okay, so that's the really well, and then just the guests that you bring on, and kind of maybe even curating that experience. I don't know if it's more like more diversity, or is it honing in on certain niche topics within that. So I'll throw that out there.
Okay, I saw Dr. Clark's hand.
Yes. I think that I'd really like to see more evolution in the direction of conversation that feels more like the two of you, the host and the guest, or a larger group like we have tonight, sitting at a table and letting the conversation go where it will, not be as structured or following a kind of an outline of somewhat predictable questions about your early life and the influences of your family on the way you act and think now. Those are important things, but I was thinking about, I shared this with you, Tony, in a phone call last week. after Dr. Morris's wonderful evening, and it was only sort of accidentally that we discovered that one of her children is on the autism spectrum, and she has expertise and great investment in making life in the world as safe and rich and rewarding for her son as she does for her students at Morehouse, for example. And it seemed to me that if Dr. Morris had been a guest on Oprah, the lead would have been mom of son on an autistic spectrum. How does she do that? And by the way, she's done 73 other things at a high level in her profession and in her community and so forth. But let's focus in on how do you manage to be the super mom that you apparently are with this challenging condition that your son has, and also do all the other wonderful things that you've done. And so that, in a sense, that serves the audience of parents of children or even adults who are on the autism spectrum in an Oprah-like way. I think that would, draw a different and larger audience than the audience we presently draw that focuses the preview focuses on her accomplishments as a professional. That's interesting, but it's compelling if I have a connection because my son had autism and her son has autism, and how did she do that? What can I learn that I can apply immediately to something I care about deeply? So that's a hope that I have for evolution, that it becomes more of a conversation among people who are genuinely and urgently interested in a central topic, and have people of different levels of experience and expertise in the conversation. It's not just the guest answering all the questions. It's everybody's bringing something to the table.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Was there another hand?
Yeah, me.
Okay, go ahead, Aaron.
I kind of disagree with that, actually. And it's because I think this is a respite from that sort of topicality, right? I get to hear a human's story. And I think it's fine to have mixed it up. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not like an either or thing, but I like this show being about the person's story more than I like coming on and talking about X, Y, and Z. That's okay sometimes, but I think most of the time I come at this from more of on NPR, there's a thing called StoryCorps where two people are just talking and telling stories. And actually the stories they tell are really long. Like if you go onto the StoryCorps website, you can see sometimes videos, but usually audio of these hour-long discussions that these people are having, right? And then they play little pieces of it on the radio. But people's stories are almost always really fascinating to me. And so it's hard for me to say, like, boil everything down to a topic, because there was a lot that we learned about the guest last week, right? It wasn't just that her son was autistic, which was fascinating because my son's autistic and I like to learn about this stuff, right? But it's she was a phenomenal human being who accomplished more more when she wakes up every day than I do for a whole month, So like wow, right? But so yeah, the balance is, I think, really interesting to me. And I like the storytelling aspect of what we're doing here a lot. I find it really compelling and really fascinating. And I think, Tony, when you open up and you just have a discussion like you did last week with the guest, and then that free-flowing conversation really takes off and becomes really great to watch. And I think that is what we will be known for doing differently. It's getting there now, but I think it's growing we're growing into it.
Thank you, Aaron. I don't want to leave anybody else. Anybody else? Okay, we'll go on to the next question. I'll just say that this is something that I wrestle with all the time, and I don't get satisfied. And I'm married to a woman who would not allow me to get a big head about anything that I'm doing. So there, I think that we are in a good place in that this conversation, this experience will continue to grow. And I'm thankful for the opportunity. The next question is from Andy Carluccio from San Francisco, California. What do Tony and the team hope to have achieved by episode 100? So we're going to start with, I think, Aaron.
Barack Obama. That's it.
Okay. Guy?
Yeah, I'd love to see a high-profile guest appear. I have a few connections, not to Barack Obama, but some guests that I've thought of that would be great for the show. I was making sure all the kinks were worked out, and yeah, we'll talk, Tony. I got somebody who's a heavy hitter that you might enjoy conversing with.
Thank you, Guy. Liberty White?
I'm so game with that of someone high profile, but I'm also thinking that someone even like Kimberly Mobley, even like the woman that stands beside the man that does this, and just her watching all of this, like your evolution. So that would be an interesting conversation to watch.
I have asked. Just so you know, I have asked.
Keep on asking.
Dr. Clark?
Yes, well, I think Andy Carluccio poses a good question. Two things. One is, I think the goal of having an episode 100 is a pretty good goal. So there's a long history of things that start out nice and seem to be sustainable, but then they hiccup away, or they get repetitive, or they fade. And I think collectively we have to think all the time about how to keep this sustained, keep it going, keep it fresh, keep it moving forward in a way that doesn't place undue strain on any one part of the system. It may be that we have gerbils in the wire cage running as fast as they can with the best of intentions, but if that's true, that kind of sets up a weak link in the system, and we have to think about how to make it even more sustainable than it is today, in order for it to continue through episode 100. And then I guess one of my goals is for Tony to be a guest of Oprah and have conversations with Tony Mobley become famous beyond office hours and famous beyond the circles of our guests. All of a sudden, something that similar to what Alex has been doing. You know, he's been doing 800 mornings in a row, and that's gotten famous. He's been guests at various places that can make office hours much more visible and accessible to a much wider audience, whom we imagine are thirsty and hungry for authentic conversation with a variety, much greater variety of people than we tend to encounter in our neighborhoods and in our workplaces. So that's my wish for episode 100, is that Andy Carluccio hook you up with Oprah's body person and whisper in her ear that, hey, there's a guy down near Atlanta who's doing something really interesting, and you ought to have him on the show.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
And
Klala?
fasten your seatbelt.
Mhm.
Beyond what we've done.
Okay. My friend, they said that they've lost your audio. So is there anybody? Did I miss anybody?
I fixed it.
Okay, great. Okay. And I want to say, Andy, you know, I have had you on the show, and I see you as a heavy hitter of big time. And so I want to say thank you so much for being on Conversation with Tony Mobley. And when I look at the list of guests that I've had on, and most of you have um, been a guest, and the views, the range is wide. But what I can say is that I think the authenticity of the conversation in every single conversation is unique, and it is authentic. And I'm thankful for that. And I hope to get to 100. But if I don't, this is absolutely amazing, because when I look at the list, and I'm looking at the list right now, and I know I'm not looking at the camera right now, but I'm scrolling through, and I see all of these wonderful people, all of these people from very, 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 very varied backgrounds, who have shared their stories and who have taken time out of their schedule to have a conversation with me that they did not have to have. And I am just so thankful. And so I'm looking forward to having more conversations. But if I don't, I am thankful for these that I have had. So thank you, Andy, for the question. And we have another question from Andy. What has Tony learned about making good conversation, helpful tools, personal attitude? So I'm going to answer this question by, I have a lot of mentors, and I'm going to call on one mentor that he doesn't probably realize that he's a mentor in that. Guy Cochran, you're a mentor in that I was trying to have conversations, manage the technology, and do all of that in the very beginning. and it didn't quite work. And so you were able to pull together some people to take the load of trying to manage the technology piece and have the conversation. And I would say that initially that was the first block that was taken off my shoulders for me to get better and to improve. And so I thank you. The other person that I would lift up is Dr. Clark, because we had so many conversations, and a lot of pushback, a lot of engaging conversation. It was always, he would share things with me, and he gave me the latitude to not necessarily agree with absolutely everything that he said. And so I kind of look at it as iron sharpening iron, and I appreciate his willingness to engage with me. And then, and I'm just so thankful for regardless to how our conversations went, he would continue to be there for me. So I want to say thank you so much for that. And then the producer conversations with Tony Mobley. He gave me the thought that I needed to make conversation with Tony Mobley my own, because and initially that's not what I was trying to do. I was like Dr. Clark said, I was really trying to bring office hours into this space. And he made me think about what it is that Tony wanted to share. So I thank you for that. And so for so many things, your friendship and your good counsel and all of that. And so I can say what I'm saying about every person that's on the panel tonight. And for a lot of people who are watching and participating, Liberty has also given me good counsel, and the list goes on and on. This is in fact a success of office hours, more so than anything else. And it's okay for the child to have the opportunity to let go of the parent's hand. And that's kind of how I see this. And I'm just turning into a straight up crybaby. And this is not what I had anticipated having to, I thought I was going to be able to get through this without all of this. But it is an authenticity of the community of people who came together during a time of crisis and rallied around each other in trying to figure out how to do some things in video production. But an outgrowth of that was that they realized that human beings have more in common than they sometimes realize. And they were able to get past prejudice and racism and just being decent and authentic with one another. We use that word a lot tonight, but it is a powerful word, and it is a word that transcends a lot of the things that are so hurtful and harmful that are going on in this world. And it's easy when we look at the news and we hear this point of view and we hear that point of view and all of the hurt and harm and different things that have transpired most recently in the news, it's easy to get discouraged. But I would say that if we do this even if it's only in a small way, Conversation with Tony Mobley tries to break down the barriers of things that separate us so that we can try to have an authentic conversation. And it can be about those things that sometimes are political and sometimes are religious and sometimes are things that might separate us, but we can have a conversation about those things in a way in which all the parties can be okay with having the conversation. So if we don't do anything else but try to have an authentic conversation, that's what we want to try to do. And none of us are perfect, and we all have flaws, and we all have things that sometimes get in our way. But sometimes it's not a matter of, and this probably won't sit well with some people. Sometimes what is needed is a heart change and not necessarily a demand for people to legislate change. Sometimes it takes a heart change, and that can transcend some of the other things that we are dealing with. And Andy, I want to say thank you so much for your question. So we're gonna shift gears, then we're gonna go to the next question. Unless someone has a comment, if they have a comment before we move on, raise your hand and let me, Dr. Clark.
As you were talking, Tony, I was thinking about authentic conversation and expression. And a big part of that for me is listening with authentic interest in what a person different than yourself has to say and how they are making themselves vulnerable by disclosing what they believe and what they've tried to do, how they're proud of their accomplishments, or their mother is proud of their accomplishments, and how they're still working on getting better at what they do, making the world a little bit better place. The 5% a week or 5% a year improvement that can multiply like compound interest if you let it. But going back to the issue of listening, I think that's one of your gifts, is that when I'm speaking or when a guest is speaking, I believe they are really feeling taken seriously and listened to without any shade of debate or competition. It's pretty clear to me that you're not making up a snappy line as a comeback after I finish my comment. You're listening. You're right in there with me, and that's a rare gift. It's a rare gift to the speaker, and it's a rare gift to be able to do that and communicate it through a medium that's pretty constricted compared with sitting side by side in a church basement on uncomfortable folding chairs or at your neighborhood pub. It's a little easier to do that, to lean in and feel the listening happening. And you have the gift of being able to express that, communicate that through your iPhone or whatever camera you're using this week. And that is truly a gift.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Guy, is your hand up?
Yeah,
Yes.
my hand's up. Yeah, it's an important distinction that I think a lot of people learn as they grow older is not to have conversation more like a tennis match where it's kind of pinging back and forth, where it's like they're not truly listening. They're just waiting for their chance to say what they want to say. But if you're truly listening, you can peel off some of and keep the conversation rolling off of what was said, and the person feels heard when they hear the same thing either repeated or the conversation carries on off of what they said. And so it's a very important distinction. I think that younger people don't fully get it, because especially with this MTV generation of fast cuts and just like let's go fast. I mean, you really just get in tune with somebody. I mean, it's like you're seeing into their soul. I mean, you can get pretty deep even on a little screen like this. I mean, I feel you. You like it. I mean, even though you're this big on my little teleprompter, I mean, just through your voice, I mean, this is a genuine conversation. It's genuine as if you were here.
Thank you, Guy. Anybody else? Clark, is your hand up? Yes.
Yeah, I think that the art of communicating with somebody comes from taking oneself away from the process, and allowing that other person to sort of be in the space. And we've heard from multiple people who have been guests on this show that they thought, oh, we thought maybe it would be a long 90 minutes. But then once they're here, they settle in to the art of talking about what it is that they came to talk about. And they realize that no one is going to push them along the route and out of what they're trying to say. In fact, they're going to try to go deeper. And so, many people have said, I didn't expect it, but I was really comfortable. And so I think that's an important thing. And I think that when I watch the show that I can tell that about what's happening in the show. But I hope that those that watch can also get that particular kind of experiential growth from becoming comfortable in what they're hearing and learning. Because the thing about it is, it's a deeper way to understand something. You can't understand something as deeply if you do it super quickly. You have to go back and reassess it and rethink about it. But what this does is gives you the space, and it gives you the time to do that in situ, I think.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay. The next question is, what can be done to increase engagement from the viewers? And we're going to start with, okay, Clark.
Clickbait. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think that the most important thing is steadfastness.
I'll take that.
Yeah,
Liberty?
I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. I think engagement is such an odd term for a show like this. I think it's all very organic and very it's finding an audience on its own, and there's just time, and the more time and the more people that come and talk to you, the more audience you'll have. And I think any of the sort of YouTube-y things that people do. You know, we don't want to start talking about brands all the time. We don't want to start talking about, you know, frivolous stuff all the time. We want to talk about people, and we want to hear people, and or we want to talk about issues or the 50th anniversary or 50th show of the show, you know, 50th episode of the show. We don't want to. I think you have to be very careful with getting interested in metrics with a show like this. That's my thought. Liberty, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you didn't. You didn't interrupt me. I think that it started well. I thought Dr. Clark was gonna jump in there, because I think on Monday's show on Office Hours, the past couple of weeks we've been talking about YouTube marketing and the numbers and the metrics around that. And AV made a really good comment, because I did do like a light audit of conversations with Tony Mobley, and AV made a comment of, and one of the members of the community, of the being careful of, much like what has been said here, of engagement and how it is measured. I still think that there's a way to measure measure engagement, but for it to be true to the brand and the audience and who you're catering to. So that could be, you know, even just from the past 50 episodes, looking at the comments, or looking at, you know, Tony, how people follow up with you afterwards, understanding how your audience communicates and shows that they are engaged, because it might not necessarily be the same as, you know, other audiences, because this is very niche. Again, to go back to what has been said by Aaron and Talak, is because the secret sauce is the heart of the program, is the heart of these interviews, that the steadfastness of being consistent. If you look at any YouTuber, TikToker, anyone, they will tell you it is the consistency of showing up that eventually gets the numbers, that eventually you'll be able to measure that. So heart first, and then look at the engagement next.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Guy?
Yeah, I think I recall you saying that you got some engagement off of LinkedIn, and so I'm wondering about taking out of an hour and a half some of the snippets and putting them in little chunks, so it's kind of bite-sized content, and not just there, but Instagram stories, Facebook stories, and then a link to the full episode, or maybe do a cliffhanger type title that clickbait, like Talak was saying. But you know, there's been some fascinating people that you've had on, and there are little bits in there that you can put some cliffhangers in there and really get some people inquisitive about the show and about the guests. So you need a staff. You need a full-time staff of a bunch of little worker bees just cutting up your show for you.
Who's your social media
4K
manager?
HDR.
Dr. Clark.
I just had this idea, which is similar to the cliffhanger notion, in that think about, with each guest whom you invite, what would it take to end their time with you in conversation with a promise or an opportunity for them to return, not a general one that you're welcome back and we're going to come knocking again because this has been such a wonderful evening, but with something substantive. That is, Andy Carluccio, we understand that you've just joined Zoom, and it's early days. It's probably wonderful on both sides. Now we want to hear from you in November, and hear a refresher on, well, what's it really been like to move from the culture of the size that you cultivated when you were an independent company, and entity to joining something larger and more complex and different, and yet optimistically very compatible with what you bring to the table and what Zoom already has created and is continuing to improve. So we kind of have a built-in double visit, one it's about the background and how you got here, so to speak, and then it's oh, come on back and tell us what your journey, your trip through Europe or whatever's on the agenda, your Fulbright in Kosovo, how'd that work out? It's pretty exciting in anticipation. Now let's look back on it. And so I think that can kind of build an interest in return visits. That's one of the, I'm not a business person, but it seems like one of the big metrics that people use judging the attractiveness of a website, for example, is return visits, and retail, brick and mortar, it's return traffic. It's the customer who came once, bought something, was satisfied with it, and came back again for something else. That's the kind of audience connection or following, if you will, that I'm hoping that Conversations with Tony Mobley develops.
Thank you for that, Dr. Clark. And Andy, I'll put you on notice that we also want to hear about not just Zoom, but we want to hear about what your life is like now that you're in California. That's a big deal, moving from DC to California. Well, San Francisco. So, yeah. Clara?
I think that it might be really fun to try to remind those of our audience that don't ask questions that they are a huge part of the conversation, and that we need them to breathe life into the conversation even more than it already is alive, and that essentially it's when they say call to action, the reason that they say that is because you're trying to get people to act and get people to become part of the process. At office hours, we call the people who are watching and asking questions the producers. And again, we talk a lot about producers, but producers mean, what that means in that case is they are actually driving which direction the show is going to go at any given moment. And so I think that if maybe as a whole, if we can ask people to engage with the conversation more and remind them that they have that opportunity and that it comes to them. It's not, and it's a difficult one, right? Because if you do that, it can get repetitive and it can feel like a trope. But I think that I think there might be some fun ways to remind people that they have the onus and the power to influence the conversation.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Liberty.
I just wanted to come back, and since this is the 50th episode, just some of what we spoke about on Monday, and Guy reminded me of that, of just even you have so much content while people are trying to find content, you have hours and hours of content. So that those snackable, like what we like to call it, those snackable pieces of content, putting them on those platforms, but you already have traction. You shared with me before, like LinkedIn being one of your strongest platforms. And so when you do these preview videos and inviting people to come and watch the show, maybe do that a few days in advance instead of like 1 or 2 days. That can definitely help, just because the algorithm, is constantly shifting and giving it more time for it to show up in people's feeds. And then also just it's doing the little things well. So the YouTube page and some of the key words that come from it's not something that you have to add on to as much as taking those words, because people are looking for this type of content and just making it accessible for them, putting the breadcrumbs out there for them to find it.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. We are down to, believe it or not, 15 minutes, and we have tons of questions. So we have tons of, we asked about engagement, and we have tons of questions from the audience. So we're going to try to speed through these so that we can get most of these questions done. The next question is from Tlalak Lopez Waterman. What moment was the biggest moment of learning for you? I think the biggest moment of learning for me was understanding that it's not about me. It's not even about the guests that I am having a conversation with. It is about those that we call the producers, those who are listening. And it was one of the things that I asked Alex about when I said, well, what does it mean to be a host, and why, how best to get better at it? Because that was my concern. I wanted to get better at it. So being an advocate for those who are listening and watching is the way in which that I'm going to answer that question. And I'm going to go on to the next question, unless I see some hands. And I don't. So we're going to the next question. The next question is from Mickey McAture. He says, we love you, Tony. Thank you, Mickey. I love you too. Thank you so much for all of your help, and not just with me, but everybody. Mickey is as close to it as a saint as somebody who I've never met, but I feel like he is just a brother. So thank you, Mickey.
And I just want to point out that Mickey is from the Philippines, so we have a worldwide audience. Thank you very much, Mickey.
Thank you, Mickey. Douglas Carmichael asks, if you could bring anyone on the show, who would it be? Well, Aaron Aaron shared that there's not a lot of people that know. There's not a lot of people that know that I have on my nightstand an envelope, and on that envelope, on the outside of the envelope, it says Barack Obama. On the inside of the envelope, it says, thank you, sir, so much for being on Conversation with Tony Mobley. That's on my nightstand. I look at it every day, and I don't remember sharing it with Aaron, but I must have. So how did you know about that, Aaron?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't know.
But
I don't think you did share that with me, but yeah.
But what I will say is, while I think it's important for me to have a person like Barack Obama on Conversation with Tony Mobley, I take value in everyone who is on my show, because I have learned something important from every single person that has been on Conversation with Tony Mobley. And the perception might be that they may not be big time, or they may not be, this super figure in the world, but I have learned something from everyone, and I am thankful for each person who has made the decision to take time out of their busy schedule to be on Conversation with Tony Mobley. So I am, again, thankful. Douglas is back with.
I think Chris had a comment there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Clark. I didn't see you.
I understand that on your wife's bedside table, there's a similar envelope, but it says Michelle Obama on the outside.
But what's interesting, Dr. Clark, is that I have some very good friends that actually know the Obamas, and they are actually closer to Michelle than they are to Barack. So that's interesting that you lift that up. So yeah, Clark.
I would really love to get Dr. Proctor, who went on the first civilian trip to space on the SpaceX rocket. I'd like to have her. I find her to be a very interesting person, and I'd like to know more. So I think that would be a great person to have on.
Absolutely. I would like to have Cory Booker, Raphael Warnock. Not because of their political affiliation, but because of their journeys. I think they have powerful journeys on how they got to where they got to. I think it's amazing stories. So Dr. Proctor is definitely one of those people that we would like to see on Conversation. Thank you, Douglas. Douglas is back with what do you think would lift Conversation with Tony Mobley to the next level and bring it into the mainstream? I don't know necessarily. One of the things that Alex Lindsay has shared with me about that is that you need to have at least 100 episodes. So going back to Andy's question, you need to have, and he lifted up Marquise Brownlee as an example of nobody really watched him until after 100 episodes. So, if that's the formula, then, we got to push on to the next 50, and we'll see. Liberty?
I'll just jump in super quick with that while you're speaking. It's like, this is the digital or the video interactive version of Humans of New York, because Humans of New York, started just
That's really
the
cool.
photos. Yeah, they started with the photos and telling the stories, and so people were captivated by stories. I now need to go research how they started, like how that inflection point for them, but it was social media. So I would toss out that the tips shared with the earlier question that might have something to do with it going to the next level of like reaching, or the mainstream aspect of it.
Okay. Clark?
I think we should think very, very, very hard about whether mainstream is a goal. There's one thing that we have here that many other forums don't, and that is freedom. And we can talk to somebody who has maybe two views on live, or two is a little low, 8 or 9 views on live, but is a deeply important conversation that then is recorded and is out there for somebody to stumble upon and to have an important experience with. So the question is, if you're mainstream, can that still happen? And I think that's actually the question to ask.
Dr. Clark?
Yes. I wasn't raising my hand, but
I'm sorry. I thought I saw your hand.
Professors are never at a loss for a response. So, it's kind of mainstream is a kind of a fuzzy word for me. My style my commitment is to the local. And in a sense, we are a local group. We are a local group that is persistent in coming together once a week, supporting one another, being gracious to our guests. And I think that through our guests who are not longtime members of the office hours community, what we're starting to do is send ripples out through our guests' communities, and the members of the guests' communities send ripples out to their networks, and so forth. And I think that it may take 100 or it may take 200 episodes, but I think that getting better and better at the scale of what we already do is a better way to raise the odds of reaching more people than it is to try to turn this into the Ed Sullivan Show, or that's really dating myself, but to turn it into something that's promoted and pushes for the numbers. I want us to be better and better at what we're doing because it feels right and it seems manageable. And if we do that enough times and are wise about who we invite and how we listen to them, then I think the growth and the influence will take care of itself.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Liberty?
Super quick, because I'm looking at the time. I think what was said about like, when I heard the word mainstream, I didn't necessarily think CNN, because even the idea of mainstream is changing because of the power of media being in our own hands, like in people's hands. So just tossing that out there for what, like, defining what mainstream means for conversations with Tony Mobley, and then from there.
Thank you, Liberty. I don't see any other hands, so I'm going to say thank you, Douglas, for that question. And the next question is from YouTube. Beauty Bubble. Structure with substance is possible to provide a free-flowing vibe. Letting Tony rip is what we all dream of. Thank you, Beauty. Appreciate that. How do we help Tony Mobley to continue to get better? And I'm going to start with Guy.
Yeah, as I was listening to the last question, it just dawned on me that you have a platform here. Maybe it's about you helping other people get better and sharing your kind of stage that you've created here. Why not invite one of your political friends or somebody who wants a stage to have it's almost like a channel, you know, like in the olden days, we could flip the cable box and change the channel. But I believe you allowing other people to step onto your stage, your virtual stage, and use your platform can be super powerful, and it can help feed a whole ecosystem. So, I mean, it doesn't cost much to run this thing. I mean, what is it, $1.45 an hour, Aaron, for the AWS instance? So it's
a little more than that, but not bad.
Not bad. So something to think about.
Okay. Any more hands? We're about to run out of time, but Liberty?
Support, tell a friend, and share it.
Okay. Anybody else? Dr. Clark? Or you were just saying okay?
He was just agreeing.
Okay.
I think that the way that we all can help Tony Mobley get better is to help him realize that he doesn't need anyone's approval, and that he is able to do what this already, and that it is not for him to ask permission for, it is for him to do.
Okay. I'm going to be respectful of all of your time, and we're going to stop here. I just want to say thank you so much for all of you to be here. And if you don't mind, one quick last word for YouTube, for those who might have not been here live to experience this. So we're going to start with Dr. Clark.
Well, you caught me unprepared, Tony. Well, I want to introduce a little idea that I learned at church camp years ago, which is when you're in a conversation and somebody asks a question of you, you have the ability to say, I pass. And there's no judgment involved in passing the ball to, or the talking stick to the next person in line. So I'm going to pass the talking stick with the opportunity to speak at the end to Liberty White.
Okay. We can't hear you, Liberty.
I'm sorry. I think I double muted. You want us to give feedback for those who might have missed this conversation, or just overall, just a last?
Just your final words. Just your final thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And just that visual of the Humans of New York, Beauty just put on the YouTube chat that it started with someone who just wanted to have conversations with 10,000 people. So I think that you've been challenged to have 50 more conversations to get to 100. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Liberty. Aaron?
Yeah, thank you for giving us this opportunity, and for the joy and fascinating topics that we talk about every week. You know, some weeks I'm tired and don't want to, I got to go get on the computer and do this thing. And then by the end of it, I'm like, why did I think about that? Like, this is amazing. And, I'm sitting here playing with TV, but also learning stuff about all these great people and, really getting engaged by all of it. So, I consider myself a viewer, even though I'm on the back end of it. And I feel like your growth has been monumental this first year or so. And, I'm so proud of you and so proud of this show.
Thank you, Aaron. Guy?
Yeah, it's been amazing just to watch the growth. So anybody who's watched Hazma Kajar from one of the earliest episodes, you can see the evolution as to how Tony's grown and starting to not be distracted. And so it's been a pleasure. And I thank you just for leading the charge and not giving up. You've been consistent. I think there was a lightning storm once that knocked you out. That was probably the only one that we missed. And so we've had some technical hiccups, but you've trudged through and you've been a champ. So have a lot of respect for your just go-getterness, if that's a word. So keep leading the charge. I hope to see you at episode 100 and be back.
Thank you, sir. Tlalak? And then Dr. Clark.
I just want to say that it is a cliffhanger every week, as we don't know what it's going to be like next week, because it's going to be a different person. So please come back and watch the next one. You'll never know exactly what you'll get. And also, engage. And we talked about that word being a little odd, but talk to us on the YouTube chat. Talk to us in the Mukana chat. Tell us who you want to see, who you want to talk to. A lot of the times, we are thinking about things that we're interested in talking about and seeing. But I want to empower the audience of this show to be part of that process.
Thank you for that. Dr. Clark?
One final topic that I think we should continue next week and every week after that is succession. We've seen Tony Mobley grow in capacity, and in performance in inspiring ways. And there's only one Tony Mobley. What if Tony Mobley gets the flu? Who is your backup? Who is able and willing to step in or to intern with Tony Mobley so that we have defense in depth, that the show will go on, that some version of the tone that you have set so artfully can be carried forward even if you're on the injured reserve list for a week, sometime unpredictable. So think about that. No answers now, including not me. I'm not setting things up to volunteer to be host.
You mentioned it. Now you have to do it.
No. That's, you have to talk to my lawyer. But seriously, it's food for thought, and I think maybe we should end every episode with some food for thought. Some kind of add a little ritual to the close of each of our conversations, which is some food for thought. And my contribution to the potluck is, let's think about succession or backup.
And Dr. Clark, I will say that is something that I have thought about. And I think more importantly, the reason why I thought about it was I had a doctor's visit on last Thursday, and believe it or not, they had a hard time getting my blood. My body just did not want to give the blood up. And so for those who don't know, 2 years ago this time, I was watching Office Hours and going through cancer treatment. And on June 12th, I rang the bell that I was cancer-free of 2020. I had to go to the doctor on Thursday. They had a difficult time getting the blood. I don't know if it was 5 or 6 times that they tried to get the blood and were unsuccessful. And they were going to refer me to another facility to try to get the blood because it was just that difficult for them. So they eventually called in a nurse that was able to get the blood. To make a long story short, they told me that they were going to give me the results of my PSA on this week. To yesterday or today, I would receive the results. Well, actually, receive the results on Friday at 6 p.m. my time. Opened it up, and the PSA range is 0.0 to 4.0. My PSA was 0.5. So it's an amazing journey that I've been on. And as I said, 2 years ago, I was watching Office Hours and just still continuing to go through cancer treatment. Had no idea that I would be in this space doing this. And it's an amazing, but Dr. Clark, it is something that I think about all the time in terms of if I'm not able to be on, who will step in. And so team, we're going to figure that out. So that's the challenge for the team for Conversation with Tony Mobley. We're going to figure that out. So again, I want to say thank you to all my guests for today. I appreciate you. I love all of you. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for helping me do Conversations with Tony Mobley. We want to give special thanks to Kimberly Mobley, Ron Mobley, Global Family and Friends, Alex Lindsay, Office Hour members, DVE Store, Liminal Entertainment Technologies, Byte High, Video 360, ApprovalLoan.com, Cloud Bitrock, Ken Jordan, Jonas Dattel, Aaron Husledge, Sherrick Cheetah, David Brady, Marcus Lee Folk, Richard Lavery, Chris Fenwick, Manolo Lozano, Jeffrey Powers, Bo Cordo, Mickey McAture, Hazmat Geiger, Doug Moeller, Laura Thompson, Brian Shan, Dennis Champion Walker, Roscoe Jones, George Butters, Joshua Menden, Danielle Maxwell, Conversation with Tony Mobley, producer Clarlock Lopez Waterman. And Clarlock, tell me Adrian's last name, please.
Adrian Black.
Adrian Black?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Adrian Black. You are not officially on the credits, but we're going to work on that. He is controlling the show today. So thank you, Adrian, so much. Panel, again, thank you so much for being here with me to celebrate 50 episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley. And next week, my guest is Rabbi David Peskin. And we're going to have a conversation about houses of worship and streaming. And if you are a small to medium church and you're not sure of how to navigate this whole hybrid COVID-19 post-era, if it is post-era, tune in next week. We'll have some ideas for you. Dr. Rabbi Peskin will share some of the amazing things that he's doing. So again, thank you all so much. Take care. Good night. Hope to see you next week on Conversation with Tony Mobley. Take care and good night. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Love to Kimberly Mobley.
I will let her know.